to our service providers after their initial presentation. So I'm just going to step out of the way and let these individuals introduce themselves and get started.
Excellent. Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for having us. This is important for our work, to be able to come out and present to you all. I'm Daniel Ritter. I'm with Clean Water Services. I'm here with my colleagues from Clean Water Services, Lindsay and Shannon, and we'll have a special guest from Washington County. I know you didn't ask, but we included it. try to bring in a special guest. We'll be talking about overview of Clean Water Services as well as Clean Water Services role in permitting, and then Michelle will complete the presentation with Washington County's role in permitting.
Can you pause really quick? The presentation is showing that weird Bruce. This is not showing up. It's just in the notes. You just have to change it.
Oh, you have an presentation mode.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's how it's showing.
We can fix it really.
Okay.
It's so great.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's great having a hybrid meeting sometimes for the people that can't make it. It's nice, but sometimes it's a little glitchy.
Well, in level rating, everybody needs to be sure that you're not in. Because we get graded at CPO based on how many people we have in a team. So please help us get an A grade.
They're in there, I think that is.
Is that better?
It's not. So,
And share screen, did we?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If anyone hasn't noticed, the restrooms are just out through that. And they request that we don't have heat, and here we can bring water.
Great. Is this the first time you're doing this?
It is.
Is it the first time you're doing so?
We did the last one was great, and we got,
Sorry about that. All right.
Yeah.
Take it.
Thank you.
Want me to repeat that? All right, so
Oh, I can do that for you. Not before you go.
maybe.
All right.
Right space bar. This is the space bar. Just the space bar, I would do it. Space bar.
Usually that's what that's what I. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's no. It's not.
Okay, let's sharing you and you do. Oh, there you go. Okay,
What's that?
there you go. All right.
Yeah, it's a workspace.
Space bar will enhance it.
Okay. We're on slide 2. All right. So to start, one of the first things we want to do is just start a kind of a higher level overview of Clean Water Services. I'll start that, and then we'll dive a little bit lower into the overview with Shannon. That's what we'll do first to kick it off. I'm not sure how many of you know about Clean Water Services at all. So we'll kind of touch it a little bit higher. At Clean Water Services, everything we do is for public health and enhancing the environment of the Tualatin River watershed. That's our mission. That's our mission statement specifically. As a water resource recovery agency, our primary focus is public health. That's what we were established to do in 1970. We'll touch a little bit about that a little bit later. We look to combine science and nature in parts of our treatment. There's several reasons. Part of it is financial, lower cost to do so, and also cleaner environment. So those are the two, and we blend those two together. I'm not sure how many people know, how many residents and businesses do you think we have here in Washington County? Anybody?
620,000 people.
620,000, give or take, residents and businesses. So it's a combined number. But yes, that is correct. You'll get a brownie later.
I think it's 600, you were right about the total population, and I think, this is urban and urban, so that would include.
Thank you. That's why we're a team. Next slide. All right. So the Tualatin River always amazes me because I see this slide. I've only been at Clean Water Services for 2 years. And every time I present and I see this slide, it does amaze me on where we were in 1958 and then what we had to go through and then what we're here in 2024. It just truly does. Those three images really say so much in the story of the Tualatin River and our watershed. It's remarkable in 70 years what we've gone through and what the river's gone through. The picture on the left, you see there is it's a summer month in 1958, and that portion of the river, Tualatin River, is in Hillsborough. So that was what it came down to in the summer months because there was so much water being pulled from the river. And the person on the left there with the hat, the sports jacket, and the overalls is Henry Haig. You might have known that name from Haig Lake. And he was a dairy farmer and he was a dairy farmer and a member of the Washington County Irrigation District for more than 30 years. And he was a visionary in the region, just trying to put some of these environmental pieces together. And because of the irrigation district, that idea was instrumental in pursuing the federal government to build Haig Lake, which is a man-made reservoir created out of the construction of Scoggins Dam. So when you look at that picture, you see that you could actually straddle the river. That's just pretty crazy in my opinion. I get crazy. In the 50s and 60s, that's a center photo. We're really starting to see the direness of the river itself and the pollution that was in the river and that was getting caused. And that was really when it all kind of came to a head. In the late 60s, there was a moratorium, 1969 specifically, there was a moratorium on building or development, which allowed for kind of understanding the depth of the problem and what we were going to do next. So in 1970, February 3rd specifically, voters approved the formation of the United Sewage Agency, which is the predecessor to who we are today, Clean Water Services. That was the reason they did that was the voters voted to consolidate 26 independent wastewater treatment plants in the basin to be more efficient and more environmentally friendly. The community's investment in public health leads us to what you see in 2024, which is how we get there is we own 25% of the water at Haig Lake. And that's because we were one of the early supporters of the project. We were the early investors, so we did invest in the construction of the dam. And thanks to that, we're able to release water into the Tualatin River throughout the year. And that's something Shannon will talk a little bit more about in depth a little bit later. But one of the things that we do is release water so it's consistent flow. And the US government has 375 reservoirs, dikes, and channels. And Scoggins is the only facility that requires the water to go back into the river. And what they call that is a project purpose. So the purpose of that is for us to treat the water and we have to put it back into the river. So it goes back to that public health, environmentally sound approach. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to give you a little bit more in-depth. Yes, sir.
Hey, Cake Lake, the dam out of Cake Lake, is that gonna be elevated or raised, or they're gonna do? I read something a year ago where they're gonna do something with increasing the dam.
For a long time, Clean Water Services was looking at that to help increase water storage. In fact, we were, I think, the only kind of combined resource project with federal and local. We worked with Reclamation to become the joint project, so we could, save some ratepayer and tax funders. But it turned out that it was just going to be way too expensive. So, and really, there are lots of other ways that we can, increase our water sources. So we decided not to do that. Reclamation is in the process of they're not replacing, they are strengthening the dam. And it will actually look a bit higher. And there's also going to be a wider road across. So if you travel out there, if you ever go out to Gas and then you travel across that bridge, it's going to be widened. I'm sure that that our firemen folks can tell us a little bit more, maybe if you're curious about what the plans are for emergency services, or maybe not, because it's kind of far from here. But anyway, so that is not going to be increasing water storage. We're not going to be building a dam downstream. Reclamation is just they're working to reinforce the existing dam.
Because currently it's an earth, I believe it's called an earth dam.
It was an earthen dam. Yeah, I want to say it'll be done. Maybe around 2030. I think I'm actually learning more about that tomorrow, or our meeting tomorrow. So I'll know more then.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Clean Water Services is a special district. We are a county service district, as Daniel said. We were formed by a vote of the residents in 1970. There were 26 individual water treatment facilities throughout the county. You can imagine, all kind of doing their own thing. And so now it's one entity that manages all of that wastewater treatment. And we have 4 treatment facilities in the county. We have a very close working relationship with the county. In fact, our board of directors is the county's board of commissioners. It's great that we have a shared board. I don't know if you all have had the opportunity to go to any of the meetings or listen to them online, or you can watch them on YouTube. I don't know how these folks do it, but they manage to learn not only all about the county and the many services that the county provides, but also all about Clean Water Services. So they switch their hats when they're our board of directors to make decisions about the work that we do. We are, however, separately managed and financed. So we are ratepayer funded and the county is tax funded. So again, we are a water resource management utility. So when you flush your toilets, you take your showers, you wash your clothes, all that water, if you're on sewer, comes to us. So we convey it, we treat it, and then we release it back into the Tualatin River at various locations. And I just want to make a note about that. When we do release it back into the river, as you might imagine, it's a little bit warmer because of all of the aforementioned showers and dishwashers and clothes washing. So it's important and we do things to help cool that water, because water quality is one of the main, we'll talk a lot about this actually tonight, things that we are permitted and required to ensure is good. Pardon me. We also manage surface water, stormwater,
You might see catch basins in your neighborhood, and we want to make sure that those are clear of debris. And we also want to make sure that people aren't putting oil from their car or other things that are going to go right into the river. And we do manage flow in such that we release water in the summer when it's drier. And but we don't ever see, thankfully, the river looking like it did on that picture on the left. But in the summer months, when we don't see rain for a couple of months, we do release water from Peg Lake or Scoggins Dam in order to create enough flow to create a healthy water quality. And I think. So this is just an overview of our service district, which also happens to be the county. We do have 12 jurisdictions that we work with within this county. A little bit of Lake Oswego, a little bit of unincorporated Washington County, and a little bit of Portland. A little bit of Clackamas County. But primarily, we serve all of Washington County, and we're really lucky. It's really nice that we're one big county. We share leadership. The commission is our board. So it's just better for the river and all of us when we can make these decisions that are sort of big picture. There was more I wanted to say about this.
Can you be specific when you say serve? What does that mean? If people are not on wells, you serve the people get water from a water source.
We do not provide drinking water. That is Swan Valley Water District.
All right.
We are only wastewater and stormwater. So we are your wastewater and stormwater friends.
We typically, our purview is regional infrastructure. And then we do have some cities that we serve at the smaller level, smaller pipe depths, or sizes. So, but we don't do. And real quick, for you that are taking pictures, we're going to provide the presentation in a PDF once we're all done. So you guys can just enjoy.
Can we ask questions now?
Please.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay. I want to know why when the decision, because we briefly spoke to Pam previously about this, was made for the Board of Washington County to be the same board as Clean Water Services, because the county is very pro-development, and then Clean Water Services, I feel like, should be more pro-water and safety of communities. So to me, those seem like two very conflicting things and a bit of a conflict of interest.
To my knowledge, check me if I'm wrong, but I think that decision was made when we formed. I think we've shared the same
From the beginning.
board from the beginning.
Mhm.
We aim to serve all of the 12 jurisdictions, so to convey and treat wastewater and to manage stormwater for water quality. We respond to cities if they just, when they make plans to develop. We're not pro development, but we do want to make sure that we can serve them. And we have to think long term. We have to think 20 years, 50 years out, because I'm sure we've all been stuck in traffic as we're waiting for those large sewer pipes to be put into the ground all along Lake Rogers. We've been there. We don't want to be doing that every 10, 20 years. So we do try to think long term. It's difficult to plan. We do this thing sort of, we used to call it just in time. So we have sort of a long range plan, 50 years, maybe even more. If and when it comes time for X jurisdiction to have 50,000 more people, then that's going to be time for us to begin, this particular capital project. But we've got the capital project general plan, but we won't implement it until we hear from the jurisdiction that is confirmed to be happening. We want to be able to serve the people that live there.
I'm just curious if this is like I mean, I'm sure you've heard this from other community members, but I'm interested in seeing if, I mean, hearing from you, this has been brought up as an issue before, and or if there's any interest from Clean Water Services to further diversify its board and bring different voices to the table that are not just Washington County leadership.
Yes.
It does look like Commissioner Treese is online.
Oh, perfect. That would be lovely.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and I will turn it up as much as I can. We don't know what.
I'm not sure who asked the question, but it's a really good question. It's like, why do we have the same board for the commission as we do for Clean Water Services? And I believe that you have really covered the history well as to why the whole sewer and stormwater issue was covered by the county previously. And as Clean Water Services split off, it made sense to have the board work in both capacities. We are looking at our governance structure. We are looking at what the best approach is to managing Clean Water Services. So I want you to know that the board, the leadership of Clean Water Services is really attuned to what Clean Water Services looks like today in relationship to what it looked like before, and do we need a new governance structure? So thank you for the question, and I'd be happy to talk to you offline about what our approach is here, but we are looking at what the best approach is. So again, thank you for the question. I think it was really insightful.
Thank you, Commissioner Priest. Way above my pay grade. Here to talk about stormwater.
I'm going offline, but I'll be here if you have any other questions. I mean, I'm going off camera.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions. One, does Clean Water Services budget help pay for commissioner salaries?
Not now.
Not-
It does not. And just a quick review that the commissioner's salaries, we had a charter change several years ago that allowed for a salary commission to look at the commissioner's work and set salary ranges. We have been in discussion about whether or not there should be contribution from Clean Water Services in relationship to the work that the commissioners do. Was that Mary Manso that asked the question?
It was.
Good for you, Mary. Thank you. But it's, I want you to know, again, that's another thing that's on the table to think about.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Another question, are there different rules for areas inside the urban growth boundary versus the rural areas? Do Clean Water Services rules apply to both areas equally?
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like that's
Yeah.
gonna be a question that our friends are gonna be able to answer when it's their
Do you
turn.
guys have design and construction standards? And I think that's
We
kind
do.
of the
Yeah.
question.
Perfect. And
Yes, we do.
we're
Okay.
gonna have to touch on all that, so.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna go to the next slide. So just a few more facts about our county and our beautiful river. 700, just over 700 square miles, 80-mile flat and slow, over 700 square mile basin, 80-mile flat, very slow river. If you've ever kayaked, you would know this. And interestingly, the only source of water is rainfall. So we're not like Portland where you get snowfall and snowpack into your water source. We treat wastewater, and when we release it back into the river, it's at 95% higher treatment than, it's a higher level of treatment than 95 facilities in the nation. We talked about the water flow, and you saw pictures of how the water quality is better than it has been in decades. There is kind of a collective impact, and what that means is we work with a lot of partners in this big county. So we work with the Sonoma Water and Conservation District. We work with the Tualatin Basin Watershed Council, you know, we work with a lot of partners, Friends of Trees. We plant a lot of trees, over 2 million trees we planted, in the last, I don't know, 7 years or something like this through Tree for All, which is a big collective, group. And we do that to shade the water that, you know, we release our treated water into the river. The trees shade the water, if that cools the water, so fish are happy, we're all happy. And this is kind of a nice little segue, but we are permitted by the Department of Environmental Quality. And that kind of comes out of the Clean Water Act, the Federal Clean Water Act permit, which from 1970-ish. So, and then we also are a permitter, so we are permitted. We are also a permitter. And if you were to go to the, I'm forgetting what the name of is it the EPA? If you go to the EPA's website, you can see a case study of our permit, because we have a very complicated permit, which again, I think our friends can talk about a little bit more, but yeah, you can learn more about us there. And with that, I'm not gonna turn it over.
Just a quick question. What creates the highest pollution, issues for the river? Is it agricultural? Is it,
I mean, I know that we see a lot of, we treat for zinc, we treat for mercury,
Phosphates.
well, yeah, so, and of course now we pay a lot of attention to PFAS, everybody does. But I think it's the mercury and the zinc that are maybe the highest contributors to issues that we have with water quality.
and are those like organic with the river, or is that being put into the river?
It's put into the river. I mean, there are lots of things on the roadways. There are things on our tires. There are treatments we put on our roofs to kill moss, or you know, this kind of thing. So it's from a variety of sources. And that's one of the things we also try to do is educate people. We're happy to provide information to HOAs about stream-friendly treatments for things like moss and
And part of that collective impact that Shannon mentioned is relationships across the watershed. And we wouldn't be as successful as we are if it wasn't for those relationships across the watershed. And CPOs are one of those strong relationships that we utilize to be able to try to get the messages across. And today we're here presenting generally, and we're talking a little some permitting. But if there were ever, you know, something more that we have a project in the neighborhood, or we would really want you guys to be a partner so we could get that word out, and be as transparent about the project that you would want. So I throw that out there because it's important for you to know that if there's ever any issue, we're gonna be the ones that are gonna be presenting. But I think that's Shannon's and.
it is.
Unless there's a question, one.
I probably can't answer. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so thanks for having me again. I'm Lindsay Obermiller. I work in our Development Services Department at Water Services. I do the environmental plan review. So I work with, there was a question about our design and construction standards. I work with our sensitive area and vegetative corridor standards, and we'll define those a little bit later. But before we jump in, I just want to kind of, you know, as we zoom into the urban areas where we have our jurisdiction with development, I just want to note that when there are projects that include natural resources, there are other agencies that can be involved, for example, on the local, state, and federal level. So we're local water services. We also have our partner with the county, and then the incorporated cities there that we mentioned, like the main cities. And like another example is if there was a project that included interactions with a wetland on a property, there would be potentially both state and federal agencies also involved, including Oregon Department of State Lands, or DFL, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So there can be a whole lot of like layers of permitting when it comes to natural resource protection. And we're diving into this because we understand that that's a hot topic for this team. So thanks for your questions. Yeah. Okay, so Clean Water Services, we review and permit for stormwater management and connection. So we look at that development is meeting standards for water quality, quantity, and what's called hydromodification. We also review sanitary sewer connection. We also look at erosion control, and then vegetated corridor conditions are another review item that we permit for as well.
Is that also called riparian zones, the vegetated corridors? Is that the same as riparian?
It can overlap, and so Michelle will discuss that language. Can be, language is always so important. That can be a general descriptor, even when you're not talking about permitting and agencies. The riparian area is typically adjacent a stream or wetlands. So we use Clean Water Services doesn't use that term specifically, but yes, they will overlap, and you'll get a good example of that. So yeah, below here I have, this is not the entire definition of development that we include in our design and construction standards, but it's the ones that I like to hone in on for groups when I'm discussing this, because some of them may not be super comprehensive, so are like assumed. So land divisions, including lot line adjustments, are considered a development action. Grading, just simple grading, if it's a large enough area. And then of course, the addition of impervious surfaces, you've got your buildings, your schools, your homes, parking lots, roadways. And then also vegetation clearing when it results in the removal of trees and native vegetation. So oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I have a question. This is a really great information to have. I feel like I just got a crash course on this in my own neighborhood over the last couple of months doing my own research. I'm curious how like someone like myself or any other of our neighbors connect the dots to this, because it took me, I don't know, like 2 months to understand that the development in my neighborhood and the tree removal project required a CWS permit. And I spoke to the CWS team for like, I don't know, 2 hours probably. I feel really bad about that, but they were able to explain a lot of things about it. And then I didn't even realize how it was connected to the Oregon Department of State Lands and DEQ until like further research. And so like, I'm just wondering, like, when things like this come up, like, what are the resources that are provided to common people like myself to do my own due diligence and then also raise the concerns they have across different departments, because CWS is like this little piece, and then there's other kind of departments involved, and I just didn't know. And I feel like that could be streamlined and made much simpler.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I can understand the need to and the desire to want to understand this better. I think that when you look, and when I was doing, like, even in my college days, learning about the Clean Water Act and the EPA, I learned very quickly that like for environmental protection, things are really siloed, unfortunately. We can speculate why, but I guess, maybe we're not an exception to that. So when it comes to the other agencies that would interact, like you mentioned, the Department of State Lands. So I think, currently it is on the public to educate themselves, to ask the questions. we will answer your phone calls and provide that information as best we can. And then also, yeah, help you get in contact with the right people that may also be involved. We have our set of standards. They have, they have their set of standards. And then even I used to work in the public sector, and so Clean Water Services has this set of standards, but if you're working in like Clackamas County, it's even different. And so there's a lot of different policy out there. And yeah, you like just asking the questions, and we welcome them. And I would hope that all welcome them.
Yeah.
May I make a comment here? And I believe that, is that Tanya that's talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for being there. First of all, I'm sorry I'm not with you tonight. But I think that I went out and actually visited the spot that is under question right now. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is how can the county have how do we overlap in terms of what communication we need to have for our residents in these areas? And it shouldn't be all incumbent upon the person who's asking questions about a development or changes in their neighborhood. We should be able to communicate through the silos a little bit more effectively. So that's something that I'm taking on and taking a look at as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll add that, yes, we, especially with our county partners, we strive to be very well coordinated. So when there's high concern for something, we're on the phone, we're calling each other, we're talking about it. I also really value my working relationships with the federal agencies and the other state agencies as well. And so we're always building that and bringing them together, bringing them to the table when it's needed.
And I don't mean to sound negative about the communication between Clean Water Services and the county, but I think that sometimes when a resident asks a question, there's a chain of information that we don't always think about. Oh, well, this person probably also needs to know about what happens with Clean Water Services in relationship to this development and potential floodplain down below. It was interesting to me to look at this development and think about all the relationships and how it's difficult. It's not easy, but I think that being receptive to our residents' input is important. And I know that we really work hard to do that, but there might be an easier way for our residents to have information about different aspects. That's all I'm saying here. And please don't think that I'm not faulting staff for this. It's just the way that we're structured.
I think sometimes too, the information comes in as the application goes, and there's a lot of like checking by Clean Water Services, or depending on the different agencies, like, oh, I need more information about this. It's based on the site conditions that change. So you're constantly kind of building it's kind of iterative back and forth with the applicant and the people that are reviewing the information. I need more, or you have a certain piece of it and somebody else maybe has a different piece. So that's all kind of woven together for the information when you're looking at a development project as a whole.
That's a good point. And yeah, projects can change, and the scope can change even as you're doing a review. And we'll talk kind of through the chronology of it into permitting. But yeah, so the answer can be like one small thing changes, then the answer, who's involved and what's needed could change too.
Good question.
Yeah, my experience with your service provider letters is that they aren't a real transparent process. And I think some of it is that back and forth that happens between the developer, between the county, between Clean Water Services. The community is really shut out from that conversation. Is there any way to make the service provider letter any more transparent, and for the community members actually to have some input before the service provider letter is issued. Because that's, I think, where a lot of the frustration comes from the community, is that we feel like, once the service provider letter is issued, done deal.
It's a technical document, so it's different than a land use action.
But it is, there's things like in my neighborhood, there was a development at the top of the hill, and my neighborhood it was built in the 50s. They let all of their stormwater from their water quality quantity facility into our ditching that did not really exist. And we kept saying, wait. And they're like, oh, we'll take care of it. But, they did, Clean Water Services eventually did deal with it, but it was the developer that should have taken responsibility for it. And it ended up being Clean Water Services that came in and made the repairs that needed to be made. And it's like, why didn't that get addressed when Clean Water Services was doing their analysis? And, it was a situation too, where it was like on the top of the hill, water could have gone north, could have gone south. They decided to have it go south when most of the water was being created on the north side. So, it's that sort of conversation that we feel like we've been totally left out of.
And I have a creek in my backyard now because there's a water quality pond just uphill a little bit from me. And so I didn't necessarily want a creek, but I have one now. So I mean, it would be a way to respond to this kind of thing would be public facing.
Do you want to add?
Okay, just
something?
a follow up to these two
Yeah.
questions in regards to stormwater. When did the requirements come into play where you have pretty strong requirements for collection, retention, filtering, and releasing water? When did that come into play? Because it had to be in the 90s sometime.
Well, so, would you take that?
Sure. Sorry, I was mostly just gonna listen this evening.
And we'll work on.
I'll go hide in the back again. My name's Damon Reich, I'm the Development Services Division Manager in Managed Services. The stormwater question, we've kind of taken on pieces of stormwater over the years. 1990 was when we really first started getting into it, and the technology and the knowledge around stormwater has changed a lot. And so we did treatment water quality, not the volume part of stormwater, starting back in the 90s. And the requirements around that water quality have increased over time. It's only been in recent history that we had a requirement for hydromodification, which, so recent history, 2019 is when those standards went into effect. And that those are really geared towards protecting erosion of the stream channel because of the pollutants that erosion can add into the stream. We also have a requirement for quantity control in very limited cases where there's a downstream analysis that looks at capacity. I think in a lot of cases, that's probably what many folks here are worried about. To talk about the stream in your backyard, that's more of the type of thing that I would think of as being a volume component. But like I said, it's only when it's demonstrated that there's a downstream deficiency that they have to do some sort of volume storage for that. The hydromodification requirement in many cases also addresses that issue. So the standards have gotten to be a little bit more stringent around that volume component, but it's only been the last 5 years.
If you go to Bethany North, and unless you're conscious and looking for it, all of the single family and multifamily, they've got these collection areas that are concrete vaults pretty much between the curb and the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And, I guess my biggest question is the cost to developers is really excessive. And most recently, there was is there a calculation that you come up with because on McDaniel Road, there was 4 acres that Peter Noyes developed, sold to Lennar, and they have a collection, detention, filtration, and release to put it under McDaniel Road to go down to Cedar Falls. Okay, and that was X size. Next door, another 4 acres. Okay, the one on the Noyesville was 24 lots. One right next door, same 4 acres, 36 lots, 24 to 36 lots. The detention on McDaniel Road is 5 times bigger. 5 times, I mean, it's huge. And it had to cost $100,000 to $200,000 to create that and eliminated 4 or 5 lots.
So North Bethany is unique for Washington County in many ways, but with regard to stormwater, it's unique as well. The thing about North Bethany is that there were particular requirements, even before we had that hydromodification requirement. Generally for the district, we were piloting stormwater practices in North Bethany, and there were specific requirements for stormwater that only applied to North Bethany at that time. There were also a number of options for how to manage stormwater. The street side planners you're talking about, those are really only addressing water quality. They're not addressing any sort of volume component. Just they're helping remove pollutants from the runoff. They do a little bit to help volume, but not very much. Developers have a choice to some extent what they can do. We want them to do green infrastructure, but sometimes they consolidate that into a single facility for the site. That's like a vegetated swale. Other times they do the street side planters. We also have ponds that collect water, hold that water, and meter it out slowly over time. The other thing that we piloted in North Bethany was doing stream enhancements to make that stream channel more resilient to increased runoff from development. So it's a little bit hard to take 2 developments side by side, especially without the plans, and know exactly why they're different. But there is a formula that's based on the amount of impervious area, and how that has changed what was there previously for how big the water quality facilities have to be to treat the water, as well as what needs to happen in terms of either holding water back to meter it out to the creek or enhancing the creek to make it more resilient to new flows. So,
Why was the North Bethany area different?
a lot of those requirements only existed in North Bethany at the time. Some of them have been brought district-wide. They've been brought district-wide, particularly the hydromodification requirement, because it was a requirement of the permit we have from DEQ to incorporate that into our development. But we knew it was coming, and we were trying to figure out exactly how to do that in North Bethany. And there are some land use requirements too about how stormwater works in North Bethany and having to have a regional approach as opposed to a lot by lot or development by development. Most of the developments in North Bethany were pretty big, so it wasn't much of a problem anyway.
It's kind of interesting too with the timing of like when each development would come in. It's a little tricky, and I think it was a pilot project, right? at
Yeah,
that
there
time.
were multiple pilot projects with regard to
But
stormwater.
yeah, there's some specific standards in our development code for North Bethany.
So
That's
if you-
something that worked out together.
If you drive around the rest of urban Washington County, you won't see nearly as many street side planters as you see in North Bethany. There's a lot more of them there. So that's just an example of one of the things that we were trying to do. They're very popular in other jurisdictions. You do see them quite a bit in Portland, and other areas around, but it was new to us at the time.
To me, it just seemed like the development cost for Shonda developers pretty excessive. It's, you know.
Well, and they get some choice in it. They have to meet the standards, but there's different ways that they can do that, so. But yeah, managing stormwater is not a cheap thing.
So I did a time check but I don't want to ignore the questions that came back first. So quickly, I will just say that, appreciate the question. Currently, we don't have, a public comment period, as you're aware, for the, environmental review process at Clean Water Services. I think there has been a growing amount of interest in reviews of projects, and currently our recommendation is to, do a public records request as often as you'd like. And yeah, and please ask any questions you might have.
Do you monitor, after you send a service provider letter and the development goes in with, requested modifications? Do you follow up on that and see what it looks like 5 years down the road? Is there, to see, okay, we didn't ask them to do this, and now the neighbors are having these issues with it? Is there any kind of a systematic review of that?
Yeah, so currently for both, if we're focused on like sort of the inspection, monitoring of vegetated corridor, and we can also lump in the stormwater approaches, so whether it's vegetated filter strip or those constructed items need to, the approaches, they need to meet our standards. And so we do initial review. The permit will include a approved plan that also includes maintenance and monitoring notes, and if it's a large enough project, so bonding to ensure that they get planted appropriately and that they meet performance standards. For the vegetated corridor, generally that's an 80% survivability. And we do also kind of target a higher density of plants so that after the maintenance and monitoring period, hopefully, it can go on to flourish, but that is a 2-year process. So after that 2 years, if they're meeting that performance parameter, then yeah, we hope that they continue to steward their property, but they no longer have that requirement.
It was kind of a good transition. We're just getting ready. You just started touching on this.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to get ahead?
Yeah, so yes, we have planning construction standards. Chapter 3 is where the vegetated corridor and sensitive area standards live. So a couple of definitions. We have the water quality sensitive area, or we also call it sensitive area. Those are things like your wetlands, your streams. I like to say the state and or federal jurisdictional wetlands or non-wetland waters. And then the vegetated corridor or buffer is the area immediately adjacent. So we heard the term riparian, again, overlapping. It's just another way to refer to it, but we use vegetated corridor, and that's going to be mapped from the edge of the sensitive area. It's typically a 50-foot width. I say typically, but there are things that can affect that. So if there are steep slopes, then that's considered 25% or greater. You're going to increase, and now there's a break in slope, and it's going to be an offset. So we max out at 200 feet width. Of course, things like existing conditions, like existing developed areas, are not going to be included in the vegetated corridor. And what do you want to say about? I think that covers all of that.
When you require
Yeah.
detention, collection, so on, who owns that property after it's developed?
So that is a stormwater question, and I want to get through this part. We're kind of slow on time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little low on time. We can definitely answer that question. Is that okay to pin it?
Yeah, Clean Water doesn't take control of it.
So if it's a regional, if it's a public facility, we do after the maintenance period.
Can I ask a quick question? On the vegetated corridor, the existing condition, I read in, I think the permit application, the CWS and Army Corps of Engineers, they define some of those areas as degraded vegetation.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because that area had not been touched in 40 years. So how can it be degraded?
Yeah, so that So let's see how I can like build that all in.
That's fine.
And it is something that I was gonna touch on. So when so all properties are going to require a service provider letter when they are developing, or all projects will require a service provider letter. But not all properties are going to have sensitive areas and vegetative corridors, just the lucky one. And so so we do have a process, we call it a pre-screening, that every project is guided to do if you're meeting the definition of development. That gives us the ability to learn about your project, review a site map, and then look at the property and see, we do desktop review and see if there's potential for these sensitive areas and vegetated corridors on your site. So we compile a couple of maps that are very similar to like what a environmental consultant would do as background research when they are going to go out and actually determine the boundary of these resources. So maps like the Natural Resource Conservation Service hydric soils. So that's a brown swap here in the picture. And that is, again, all of these maps are not again, but for first thing, they're all approximate. They're helping us kind of zone in and guide us on what could be there. So hydric soils is telling us that it could be a poorly draining area where wetland conditions can be supported. Like we also look at like things like local wetland inventories. We have some stream layers of the major tributaries in the area. Contours help tell us, is there like low area here? And then historic aerials give us a good history of like what the land looked like. So if there are potential for sensitive areas, then our response in the pre-screen is going to be that you need additional information, likely in the form of a site assessment. And that's where where the applicant, the developer, is going to typically need to bring in a third-party environmental consultant to go out to the site. They're going to collect data. They're going to do what's called a wetland delineation and really determine where the limits of that resource may be, so that they can set the limits of the vegetative corridor. They're also going to look at what the existing condition of that vegetated corridor is. So the way that that's determined is you're looking at the percentage aerial cover of each species of plant that's out there. So the areas are going to be based off communities, based off plant communities. So if you have an area that may have, some coverage of trees, maybe though there's a couple of non-native invasive English hawthorns that are giving some canopy, got a lot of blackberry, that is going to make your conditions score lower into the degraded zone. If you have the more trees, coverage, and native species you have, the higher you go, and there are 3 categories: degraded, marginal.
And where is that published for the public to see?
Yeah, that's in the design and construction.
For that, so it's you can see that?
Yeah. So the criteria that you would meet for to determine whether it's good, marginal, or degraded is within the chapter 300.
That's on our
But
website.
where is it public?
It's on our website.
For a specific development?
So public records, yeah.
It's specific.
And yet, any public person can go in and find that.
No, so you will have to you need to request it through our public records system on our website.
I have a question. Okay, so this is great that y'all do this. I love the vegetative corridor because it's likely that we're gonna keep some like really beautiful Douglas creepers that we have on this development that I've been talking about all night. The issue is that all this work is done, and then the developer will just put an application to Oregon Department of State Lands, I believe, to completely just like fill in the wetlands. So like, you know, like the process is a little bit different. I get that it's important to like, you know, outline where these like vegetative borders are in it, but it feels like a lot of work and hours put into this when the developer is gonna go and request a permit from another agency and then they're all just gonna be filled anyways. So, and this is the thing, it's like, there's all these departments involved, but like, you know what I mean? Like the efficiency, the communication, I feel like is lacking. So.
Isn't this information in the development application that is submitted to the county? And then the CPOs get a copy of the development app, because they have the grading and the tree removal and all that stuff in the development application.
Yeah, and bits of the service provider that are also built into land use.
That's in the application.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I guess to answer your question, if a developer is planning to fill a wetland, they're going to put that on their on their environmental review for us as well. Because we have standards that dictates how they're going to mitigate for the vegetated corridor lots adjacent. But you're right, the approval for that wetland fill must come from the state or federal agencies and/or federal agencies. So, but their timelines are a lot longer. We are tied to land use and where didn't get to go through the chronology thing, but we're the first. The service provider letter is sort of like your ticket to begin your project, to begin planning your project and, you know, in permitting and in land use. So, so you need to do that first. Our timelines are tied to land use, tied to the local development. The state and federal agencies take up to, I think, 125 days. So it is a condition of the service provider letter that they have those permits at the time of us issuing our permit.
Is that something that we can go through here?
Yeah,
Do you want me to go through the clicking, or do you want me to look through the all?
don't click them all yet. Sorry.
So question about land that has historic tiling underneath it to remove the wetland. Is there anything that can be done in that situation? Is that just, it's been tiled, it's no longer wetland?
That keeps me up at night. I'll be honest.
Can you explain what you?
Yes. So prior to the 1970s, sites that were in sites to support agricultural food production, they could ditch or put drain tile in their land that basically drained the wetlands, diverted the water.
Buried in the ground.
Buried
and
in, it picks it up.
absorbs the groundwater.
It picks it up and takes it to another location, like typically a ditch or a pond. And then they can use that water to irrigate the crops. So that was really supportive of the farming practice, agricultural practice. I think it was like 1974.
So is it only agricultural land? Because we have an area in our neighborhood that had pasture for animals. Is that considered?
I think that's considered agriculture. Yeah. So sorry, it could also be for animals. So they so after I think 1974, you can no longer put new drain tile, drain wetlands for ag use, but you can still maintain what's existing. So so yes, I can look at historic aerials and I can see what used to be there. And then, you know, as some of these agricultural sites are coming into the urban growth boundary and getting developed, they have a much more reduced wetland or resource area because of that practice.
So how can you build on land that has tile without causing issues with crawl spaces?
No, and the engineers get to figure that part out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I wonder if trying to remember what's next. I wonder if, look at this, sorry, we're out of time. Let me just quickly go. So walk through a simple project. Here's a tax lot. We've got a creek in the back. We're gonna have to hire, we wanna do a project. We're gonna have to hire that consultant to delineate the boundary. They're going to add the vegetated corridor. Anyone add that corridor? And yeah, so we've got a nice corridor that runs parallel. The property boundary does not go beyond the creek, because if it did, there would be more corridor on the other side. This particular project is not encroaching into the vegetated corridor. So they are maintaining avoidance, which is our priority of our standard. But they will still have the requirement to enhance the vegetated corridor. So you mentioned the existing condition. That's important to us because as part of a development requirement, if it's not in good condition also still has enhancement requirements. But the condition is going to set what is required for enhancement. That looks like removing invasive species and planting native trees and shrubs. So we can go to the next one. Shows that this project is going to have to do some enhancement. The next example does have a little bit of encroachment. And so in this right here, yeah. Oh, sorry. If you click the next one, I should highlight it. There we go. Yeah. So there's some encroachment into the vegetated corridor. This project is demonstrating that it's minimized as much as possible. There are some site constraints. And so they need to mitigate. The way mitigation works, there's a few different opportunities of how to mitigate, but generally we're looking for on-site mitigation where it's going to replace one-to-one the encroachment areas. So in this case, this is where they're going to include their mitigation. So they're taking a little bit out, adding a little bit. We used to call this corridor averaging, kind of match the name. And then next slide. So sort of an overview, our vegetated corridor standards are triggered by development. A wetland and non-wetland water delineation by a trained environmental consultant is needed when those resources are on the site. We prioritize avoidance, if that can't be attained, then minimization and mitigation. We didn't get into it very much, but when there are an increase in encroachments, we have a greater requirement for analysis of the need. So we ask for an alternatives analysis. It's very similar to what DSL and CORE look for in their JPA. A lot of the information we'll share between reports, if there's also wetland encroachment, which also bumps it into an alternatives analysis needed for us as well. And then all projects need to enhance.
So, hi everybody, I'm Michelle. Maybe just in the interest of time, I just wanted to let you know that we recently updated our significant natural resource regulations. And there's a lot of really great information on the website as well. Our board, our full 5 inventory of the natural resources hadn't been updated for 40 years. So it was a big lift of updating the resources in the urban unincorporated area. And then we developed the regulations. And for the riparian areas, they're very similar to what Lindsay has talked about. Those vegetated corridor buffers are part of the regulations for the riparian habitat areas. And then we have some tree protections for removal and retention requirements for the upland wildlife habitat areas. So those areas nearby the riparian areas in most cases. So I think we're kind of well over. So I'll leave it there unless there's any questions. And I'll be happy to talk or give me a call at my office. And that information is going to be in the PowerPoint and my contact information too.
I just have a quick question.
Could you give an example of what a floodplain alteration would look like?
So to add another layer, that's actually not something that Clean Water Services has jurisdiction. We're not the floodplain agency. That is, what is that? So in unincorporated areas, the county put on, and in incorporated, the cities the cities will be our contact. Generally, I think you're talking about like maybe like the cut fill balance. So if you're altering within the floodplain, it needs to balance. It needs to be no net loss. And so I'm probably speaking outside of my lane, but did you have a specific question about that?
Well, no, on the particular development that we're talking about, I had noticed that one of it was mentioned that there would be a floodplain alteration. And we live right next to a creek and a lot of us are near floodplain areas. And so I was just curious, how do you do a floodplain alteration without altering a whole lot? And it didn't give any specifics. I just wanted to, but that might be a more specific question to ask. So who at the county would have that?
You would contact the current planning staff, and then there's a floodplain manager.
Oh, okay, excellent information.
So I have a question. I know that we were waiting on this, but there was a concern in the development that, the proposed development that there were what, 80 trees? Weren't there 80 trees or at least 80 trees, and we couldn't get a determination, I guess, of significant natural resources?
No, they were mapped. They are mapped. However, since this wasn't passed in time, all the trees that were mapped on there are now gone. They've been cut down.
But there are still trees in the vegetated corridor, so if they don't get the permit with DLS, does that mean that they're gonna be a part of the significant natural resources since the review period is still ongoing?
So they will be both, if they're retained, they'll be both the resource, yes. So you're privy to that DSL and Corps are going to be making the decision on whether the wetlands are filled. So the applicant has proposed quite a lot of wetland fill. Yeah, so again, if the vegetated corridor remains, then yes, significant riparian habitat is really on it. Together, they form me.
So even if it's not approved and under review still, and let's say it's not approved, that permit's not approved until February, it's still within the significant natural resources still in it. Right.
Oh,
Well, the riparian, the regulations for riparian upland habitat are essentially the same as they were before. We're just kind of codifying those regulations, which have been reviewed by Clean Water Services, reviews the vegetated corridor buffer. So they are under our earlier standards, but they're effectively the same as they are for riparian wildlife habitat.
Is the Army Corps of Engineers, when you're saying Corps, is that what you're referring to? How does that impact the timeline? I'm just needing a little more clarification, because you mentioned, and I didn't totally retain that.
yeah, so we could issue a service provider letter with, with wetland encroachments that they're stating they'll get permit for. They probably won't get that permit for like a month or so after, or longer, and depending on that review process, and if they're answering all their questions. The development, so the SPL, what we issue, will condition that permit for DSLing for that approval, matching what they're proposing in the service provider letter. They'll need to have it before we issue our permit for them to do the work.
Okay, they need to get that from the Army Corps first.
Yeah.
I see, okay, thank you.
But my experience has been anytime the county has approved, then the Corps
generally goes along with it?
Yeah, so it's gonna be it's a Department of State Lands and Army Corps of Engineers. Sometimes they're separated, but oftentimes they're together. Yeah, I mean, so that is something that's curious about, like, what are their parameters for approval and whatnot. But I'm gonna say I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Your question is that
It's that, you know, once the county is approved, the state and federal agencies are gonna be, well, the county looked at this in depth, so we're just gonna go along, which is a little frustrating.
yeah,
to community members.
I would definitely take those questions to them as well, but yeah, they have their own set of standards that the applicant needs to meet, and yeah, and so generally, the consultant that's working on the environmental review for us is also working there, the environmental permitting, and so they have a sense of what is likely to be approved and what they're going to propose.
The DSL and the Army Corps, their process is actually more transparent. There's actually an opportunity for the public to comment. Whereas your SPL, there's no comment opportunity.
Correct.
I think, as you can tell, this is an extremely interesting topic.
Yes.
And,
Very much.
and.
I learned a lot.
It might, yeah, so we really appreciate you coming out here tonight and spending the time and sharing this information with us. I think you've generated some more questions. So, and we have your contact information, I think, so you all don't mind hearing from us in the future. And maybe if we dig down a little deeper, we may just invite you to come back. And we would, yeah, we would give you pre-questions perhaps, so.
Can I just ask one more?
That's why we're here. And
I was walking my dog, I walk my dog all the time, off of Pioneer Road going into Walton Hills Parks and Rec. And the ditch to the south of Pioneer Road is overflowing into the residents that live on Blaze into their backyards. And I'm wondering who's responsible. That's Clean Water Services for the ditch.
12 Hills Park and Rec.
But is it their ditch or it's stormwater coming from the creek up the way? It's is it Pioneer Creek? I don't remember.
This is another situation where you get overlapping jurisdictional. If it's a ditch next to a road, it will be Washington County's jurisdiction. However, Clean Water Services does help maintain a lot of those ditches, so permitting might be different than who maintains it, but we'd have to look at the specifics of what that particular ditch is, and I don't know off the top of my head.
I think that that Walker Road complex is in the city of Beaverton, so you can see that there's a lot of overlap.
Sure.
This is what makes a 70 homes in this area, this neighborhood, extremely difficult, because there's just so many different jurisdictions across the country. So.
And you can report you can try reporting the ditch issue to the county. There's a site where you can report issues, and you can also call Clean Water Services directly and try both.
I think Commissioner Treese has her hand up on the Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I think you're muted, but please feel free to go.
Thank you. I was muted. I don't want to stop the conversation about the ditch. I just, I wanted to say thank you to Clean Water Services and to the county for the presentation. There are a lot of issues that we need to be addressing, and especially in the area that's being discussed tonight. So I just want to say thank you to our the county and Clean Water Services for coming, and for the residents for being there and asking these questions.
Thank you very much.
Hi. How are you? Good. In the flesh. I know, right?
That would be great. And I think I have. I know I have your.
Virginia and Bruce, this is Lindsay from Tualatin Valley Water District.
Yeah, okay. We've got some, providers.
Sure, appreciate it.
We have more presentations. We have more presentations, so, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Okay, our service providers have been very gracious and moved their presentations for us to after the initial clean water services. So who is queued up? 12 Hills Park and Rec? Oh,
Sheriff's office is ready to go.
here's one. Shelton Water. Will there be a sheriff? Who's going? Washington County.
Sheriff's office is ready to go.
The sheriff go first. I think
Yes,
that's
sure,
me.
that would be
I
one.
believe in it, like,
You're fine. Fire.
Go ahead, Megan.
Was it decided who's going?
You're going. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Can only hear one voice, and when there's like 5 talking, it's a little difficult. Okay. Good evening, everyone. If we haven't met, I'm Megan Rasmussen with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Just a few very quick updates for you. So we have our Cornelius Community Dinner, and I know that's not in the CPO, but it's coming up Saturday, November 23rd. At Cornelius Elementary School. This is a hot meal served at no cost. It is with the City of Cornelius in partnership with Centro Cultural de Washington County and the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Everyone is welcome. There's no reservations required. And if you have any interest in volunteering, we also have volunteer opportunities for that. And details on that can be found in our newsletter that's on our website. Another big update, Washington County has an emergency alert system that's called Everbridge. If you haven't signed up for Everbridge alerts, these allow us to send you notifications in situations such as wildfires, floods, occasionally missing persons, though that's used very seldomly. And then when signing up, you can choose how you want notifications from the county, whether that's through phone call, text messages, email, etc. So again, you could find that sign up information in our newsletter. It is the first bulletin on our website. And lastly, before I share the CPO dashboards, we are headed into holiday season. Please take any steps you can to protect your packages from any package thieves. So this could include tracking your package using tracking numbers, requesting that they are placed in secure locations, whether that be a locker that's nearby or having a neighbor pick them up off your porch if you're not home, but they are. And don't leave packages unattended for extended periods of time. That encourages these package thieves to come and grab your package. And, we want to make sure that you get all of your holiday purchases. So if you are a victim of package theft, though, please do report it to us at the non-emergency number. And then if you see a crime in progress occurring, call it into 911. We do track these and we are, trying to make our community safer. So any reports that you can give us on that is very important in helping us keep that data going. Now at this point, I'll share my screen. Bruce, I think you're currently sharing, so I can't. And Sergeant Prince is on with us, so you'll be able to ask him specific questions about your area. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then Sergeant Prince, you can take it over. I'm going to go ahead and share CPO 1 first, and then when you're ready for me to switch to CPO 7, just let me know.
All right, while she's figuring it out there, I'll keep it pretty quick here since sounds like you guys have had a full plate tonight. The only other thing I'd like to add is since it's getting into the cold months, people like to warm up their cars before they go to work. A lot of the newer vehicles have anti-theft things where the key's not in it and you can't steal a car, but there are older vehicles that people tend to warm up. So if we could pass the word about if you're going to do that, it's probably not a good idea if the key's still in the vehicle. We've seen a recent uptick up in north of 26 of vehicle thefts, and it's probably going to continue as vehicles warm up. So.
Can you make it bigger? On the screen, is that the biggest it goes? It's very tiny.
So it can go bigger, but it won't fit all in one screen. So just let me know what piece you want to see and I can move it around.
Yeah, that's better.
What happened to Red being stopped in Beaverton? That was a campaign about 20 years ago.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. What was that?
Oh, I was just making a comment. What happened to, there was a campaign that used to be about 20 years ago, red means stop in Beaverton. Well, these days, yellow means go as fast as you can, and red, you just keep cruising through. Anyway, just a comment. I was trying
Any
to,
knowledge on that campaign, Sergeant Prince? I'm unaware of that one.
No, I've only been here for 18 years. So if that was 20 years, it was before my time. And if it was Beaverton, it wouldn't have been the sheriff's office. So I'm not quite sure.
All right, are you wanting me to switch to CPO 7 now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Are there any trends that you're seeing or any upticks or any downticks that you're seeing from time period to time period?
Sergeant Prince, I'm going to let you take that.
No, not specifically. Some crimes are seasonal based, like she was talking about for the package theft. So you'll see a lot of thefts from porches during this time of year. Summer months, you'll get more criminal mischief things as kids are out of school and wandering around. And since drugs are in the attention of the sheriff's office again, we're able to deal with those a lot more. So I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of these property theft type things start to taper down as we're able to deal with the folks that are driving all of this crime in the area. So that'll be kind of a longer term change that we'll see.
Okay, any other questions? No, thank you. That's. Megan, are you done?
Yes, that's all I've got.
Okay, can we, let's see, we've got someone queued up on the screen. That could we do, Fallen Hills Park and Rec? Just a quick slide in first.
Yeah, right, it's just the water
Okay.
All right.
All right, hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Paulson, I'm the planning supervisor at Walton Hills Park and Rec District. I have a few announcements, a lot, like everyone else has said, a lot of winter stuff happening. If you're waiting for getting your packages for Christmas, if you are feeling like giving to people who might be in need, we are holding our annual holiday drive, which is for families in need. And we are asking for folks to bring gift cards to grocery stores, local merchants, and retailers, and you can bring them to any of the rec centers if you want to drop those off. We also have winter registration coming up December 7th at 8 a.m. for in-district folks, and December 9th, Monday, December 9th for out-of-district folks. We also have winter breaks coming up, and Sensory Santa, so folks that are experiencing disabilities on Saturday, December 14th at Conestoga, we're holding an event for folks to see Santa that have sensory needs. As well as letters to Santa, you can drop those off at the centers from November 30th to December 20th. If you have any additional questions, I know that our website is going to be undergoing some renovation here soon. So be looking out for that if you have any struggles using the website. That should be updated and a little bit more user friendly. So that's on the horizon. Anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, would you please post on your website, if that's possible, the instructor's name of who is teaching each of those classes?
Are you thinking about the activities guide when you're looking for the class?
Just online, yes.
I will make that note and I will see if that's a suggestion. I wonder, sometimes I know we don't have the instructors figured out until the last moment. And so unfortunately, if you were to sign up for a class thinking it might be that instructor and then it switched.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Just the standard instructor's name would be good, right?
Yeah, I will make that note. Thank you. I'll pass that on. Hi. I have a question, regarding water. Yeah. So THRPD, what is the location called? HNT?
Yeah.
Yeah. Howard Interpreting.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, so that's been a topic of water around that area has been a topic of conversation. Yeah. What have conversations looked like between you on CWS on managing, or actually the county on managing some of like the water flow through there? I know some neighbors have landed on the beavers. They love the beavers. There's a lot of damming going on, but I'm just curious, like, have there been conversations? Because I know right now there are neighbors on Blaze Court who have water running into their backyards. I'm sure you've heard from them already. I'm not sure that I have heard personally from them, but I'm gonna guess that they've been in conversations with our maintenance folks. There is a lot of topic about water in a variety of sorts. I know that we are partnering with Washington County. You've probably seen the large swale on the corner of 158th and Walker. That was part of a partnership project for the road improvements and to use that water kind of storage that Clean Water Services was talking about, that detention. And then we do have our stream and our creek that run through it that does get dammed up quite a bit. We really try to balance heavily our natural resources. That includes our beavers and our wildlife and our stream enhancement projects with development. And so sometimes leaving the dams for the beavers is not a bad thing. It's something that we try to incorporate in the design of our sites as we look at water. The part on Blaze, I'm not 100% familiar with. Excuse me. I dropped my son off for soccer practice on that side and I've noticed it. I did notice a couple weeks ago that it was pretty full. And I wasn't 100, it looks like a stormwater ditch. So in that case, if it's right away, it may in fact, as I want to say Damon was referencing, it may be a city or a county or Clean Water Services maintenance scenario they may have.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, it goes right into what's forming as a lake on the east side of the park, out Pioneer, where you probably dropped your son off. I have a picture too. Yeah, just technical thing, it's actually nutrient.
There are a lot of nutria. We have,
But there are the beavers
We
that ones
have-
building the dam.
we beavers there. We have a lot of beavers though in our sites. We definitely do, and that's always been a topic of conversation. Because we are building in their area.
And the problem is, if you take out the dam, they just take out more trees and rebuild the dam.
That is correct. We do try to have methods. We have what we call a beaver deceiver, which is, yeah, it's essentially where they're piping the water from the top under the dam. So that the beaver doesn't hear the rushing water and it doesn't incline them to keep constructing the dam.
Very interesting.
And there's other methods that are not in my department that I'm not gonna pretend to know about, but we have a very robust natural resource department that focuses a lot on that. So, yeah. But we do have lots of conversations. We also have to detain our projects, our park projects have to look at stormwater management in everything that we do as well. We try to do low impact development, which are more of those bioswales, not such a big water quality facility if we don't have to, but there are some sites where we do. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
And is the water department, thank you.
Water does it.
Doesn't look like she's down here anymore.
Oh, did they leave?
I think they moved.
Yeah.
Do we have a representative from the Salt Valley Fire Rescue?
Yes,
My last dinner.
the most patient person in the room. Yes, yeah.
Hard act to follow all this time. Did that, everyone, did she come back on? We want to try to call her or just?
Yeah.
Not too faithful. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see
Yeah, take care.
You're getting camera.
I can't find the
Oh,
camera. I was hoping to hide out over here. No. All right, my name is Jeff. I'm the officer here. You guys are at station 6-8. Station 60, which is CPO 1, I think it's 60s. They were here for a bit and then they had to go. So I'm covering for them too. But normally CPO 7 is, we're a shared CPO with you guys. So this station as well as the station off 185th and 26, station 6-4. Anybody affected by the winter storm last winter? Everyone? Our our agency was tasked with the winter storm. And I think that we have some flyers, some informational flyers on our website that you can go to for preparation. But hopefully we don't have another big storm like that to that severity. But all of us went on a lot of different calls. And if you know your shutoffs for your electricity, natural gas, and water, that's kind of like the big thing. We got a lot of calls, especially when it started rewarming, pipes started bursting. People couldn't find their shutoffs, so they call 911. And so then that takes us out of critical calls for dealing with water problems. So, or electricity, power comes back on, you have surges, all that stuff. So know where your water, shut off your gas and electricity. We're on pace. This 5 stations around for CPO 1 and 7 are on track. We had 46,000 calls last year. 46,000. No, sorry, 48,000. We're at 24,000 so far till June. We're 24,000, and that's all types of calls from fires, EMS, good intent calls, like I was saying, the water problems. So it kind of varies. 911 just isn't for fires. We're going 80% of our calls are medical calls. So if you're not familiar with how the system works, you
You guys have been here long enough. You can talk to me afterwards if you want. All right. Heating up. See, everybody seen this flyer before? This is, sadly, this is carbon monoxide, big killer for the winter. So make sure you have your carbon monoxide detectors, having your HVAC appliances maintained. Sad, very preventable. So safety for the winter for your families. I know Washington County Sheriff had an app for you guys. Well, we have our own app too. Anybody know about Pulse Point? Yes? Did I hear yes?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Pulse Point's free to download. Our district uses it. You can see all the calls that are happening in our district. You can also select other agencies. How does that apply for you guys? Get the data here, because we love data. So AEDs, if you are in a commercial occupancy and you have this app downloaded, you will be notified to respond to a cardiac arrest if an AED is close. So you can actually be part of the system of early survival, helping us. So if you download that app, there's November 2024, there's 675 approved AEDs in Washington County. So wherever you're at in a commercial occupancy, you have the app that said you can help the chain of survival. Go to an AED. If you don't know how to use it, it talks to you, tells you what to do. Okay. We have a total of 4,000 incidents. January 1st to November, we had 4,000 alerted responders in Washington County. We, as first responders, have an extra layer or tier of that program that we can actually respond to private residences with our own AEDs. But for the general public, usually at a commercial occupancy. So, little thing about our app, it's called Pulse Point. You guys have sat long enough. Any questions for us? Any, real quick, I forgot to touch on this real quick. Anybody impacted with the Thompson Road project here? CPO 7, CPO 1?
What project? This one.
Oh. Driving on it.
Yeah. Us too. So that was a complete shutdown on this corner. I was pretty familiar with it because I was working with the county and us and our agency of how do we get out the service, the upper part of CPO 7. And then, because usually they give us like an alternative or emergency response for us to get through for construction projects. That was a complete shutdown. So we actually ended up going down Evergreen here, right in front of the station, and had a way to get out of the neighborhood. Only was supposed to be for us that the public saw, oh, I can go that way. And so we had a stack of cars down here anyway. We worked through it. They're eventually going to shut the other end down. And that will be our data and our way our response mapping works is we can put that closure in our system and it will reroute us to the fastest way to get to the incident or or another station will then take over that area.
That's been made things a lot better.
Yeah.
For a lot.
Yeah. It's impactful, especially when they do just a complete closure. Because this station that I'm responsible for, we have a service area, just a bubble. And Station 61 on Butner and Station 60 that was here. They're up on Cornell. We all have our little amigos that we call them. And when one's impacted, then the other one has to take that. Because we have response times that we have to meet. So, okay. Any questions?
I was curious about the mental health response program that you have, or I don't even know what it is. It's akin to the sheriff's mental health response team.
Yep. So, yeah, we have so the county has their MHRT program, mental health resource team that they have a clinician that travels with them. get staffing, maybe, I don't know if the sheriff's still on, maybe some more about that, but in collaboration, when we have a mental health call, we'll try to get an HRT, with the sheriff, licensed clinician will help us assist. We've also started, through our community risk reduction program, having one paramedic, and you've probably seen little FJ Cruiser, little car, and they're going out and doing home visits, helping people that are 911 frequent callers, and trying to help them get the services that they need, so they're not calling 911 because, you know, they hear voices in their life.
So what's the name of that program?
We have the SHARM program, the SHARM, SHARM.
Is
Is that the one you were thinking of?
Well, I'm thinking whatever the program, I've been asking Cassandra Olden about it for a couple of years.
Yep.
So SHA.
We're just now launching this, this program. And to be honest, there's several layers, like an umbrella, and there's several layers within the SHARM program that one's the paramedic going to help, frequent callers. There's another one with the mental health, component. We're trying to use your taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently. Instead of I'm on a ladder truck right here, taking this big ladder truck to someone who's having a mental health crisis is not the best use of taxpayer dollars. And so we're really trying to come up with other ways to help people that are struggling. That's it.
So when you have an emergency and the power goes out, do you advise going to the breaker panel and turning the main breakers to the house off and waiting until the electricity comes back?
When I said that, I knew I was going to get a question about that. So I would contact PG. I know personally that I went on calls where we had, where there was a surge, blew out power strips, smoke, blew out outlets. And so personally for me, whenever my power goes out, I shut the main down, and that way I know it's controlled. So when it does get relit, then I can, but that's just me.
Well, but that's good advice.
I don't want it, I mean, people who aren't familiar, start all of a sudden messing with their breaker box. I'm not saying to do that, but I would, there are some things that I've seen that, when the power does come back on, if you have some older wiring and stuff, that has caused some problems.
And I think part of the point here is if you have pulled the breaker off,
yes,
then you have to flip all the switches, because if you just throw the main breaker back, you'll have a surge which may blow the thing off the wall.
Absolutely.
Well, you need to, especially high load switches.
Yeah, and I think when they're saying know where your breaker panel is, just have it located, and if you have a transformer that goes, or if you have another line that's all of a sudden your lights flickering and it's just seeing different loads, you can go in and you can just shut that off. It's kind of like the water meter. You got a problem, know where that is. Especially if you call us like, hey, where's your breaker panel? Well, it's in the back bedroom behind closet number 2. That's great, that helps us.
Okay,
That's it?
that's it.
You guys are in my house, so I'm here if you have any other questions.
Thank you. Are we gonna get in trouble if we aren't out by 9?
No.
Can you take the floor?
I don't have a water question though. I did, and it was fascinating. I mean, they have a tough job. One thing, and I asked the other officer that was here, I said, one thing that we're doing on our large incidents where we're flowing a ton of water for like commercial fire. We're calling, we have our command structure, we're notifying water purveyors. So people are in charge of servicing that water for that hydrant that we're going to be flowing thousands of gallons of water. I don't know if they're contacting clean water to say, hey, there's going to be some toxic runoff from the fire. So anyway, I'm nerding out about that. So that's a pretty good question. Yeah, they got a tough job.
Excellent.
So could we arrange a tour of the station sometime?
Sure.
But not quite yet. Okay. You guys have been great. This is good. We're just a couple of things. Few announcements. Let's see, the CPO program modernization project. I hope some of you, most of you are familiar with what's going on. Washington County Board of Commissioners is in the process of making some changes to the CPO program. Looking at modernizing language, updating focus and scope, membership, eligibility, program requirements, and geography boundaries. So in the recent, we will have a presentation on this at our December meeting. So I encourage everybody to attend that. Well, and if you're really interested in the process, there's actually a listening session tomorrow on Zoom.
Oh,
So
excellent.
you can do them both.
And I'm
But Hudson
guessing,
has information on the process.
Yeah, I brought some,
oh, you have some.
yeah, this is just kind of outline, timeline, and then kind of the changes, and then QR code to the survey on the way to the end.
And that's exactly what I was going to suggest. If you're interested, you want to learn some more about it, go to the CPO website. And there's information about what's going on and also a link to the survey. So they are looking for your input about making these changes, and this is the time to give it. So let's see, there's a media release, I think. Do you have the media release? Is that what you have the QR code for?
No, it's just the QR code to the survey.
Oh.
So if you're looking for it online, you can just type in CPO modernization.
Modernization.
And it takes you to the right page.
Right.
So don't even worry about going to the Washington County website and trying to figure out where to look.
Right. That's the one.
But it's not Washington County, Massachusetts.
It's usually Washington County, Oregon. It's, I made that mistake.
On the back of on this sheet has all the elements with the proposed change to a few.
Is that available on the website also, or?
It's taken from the website, from the press release.
Oh, okay.
But at tomorrow's listening session and at the December CPO meeting, if people have not participated in the survey, can they offer their feedback at those two sessions?
Yeah.
And they can do both. They can
See me tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then I'll see you in December.
You can talk to iPad several times.
I'll say that the survey is kind of educational too, so when you take it, you get a deeper view on
Yes.
what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's great, because they are looking at some major changes and really want to collect information and feedback. So, the next is, do you know if anyone is still online on Zoom? Joe from the
Commissioner Trees.
hi. So Joe's subject is the chair for the traffic safety subcommittee. And he had offered to give a brief update. Just
I just promoted.
Oh, awesome.
and mostly what he was telling me today is they're still collecting information and data and coordinating with the county on some efforts.
Joe, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Can you, I don't know if you can see me.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if that's a thing I can fix.
You can.
Oh, nope. Yes, I can. Hold on.
Oh.
There you are.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll take less than 30 seconds, I promise. This was a subcommittee regarding traffic safety, and the purpose of it was really to just connect neighbors in the vicinity around Nike specifically, although I understand the CPOs cover more than that. And I think our neighborhood covers CPO 1 and 7. So pretty broader than just my street, but just in a group to figure out how to group together resources to engage with the county in a way that hopefully doesn't waste county resources, because we can work together to do it. And so far, in the brief time we've been together, we've gotten speed cameras, radar cameras, I guess, out on the roads here, and that's kind of the goal. So lots to work on, and yeah, we're just working on that. So that's the point. Just bring us all together and save our own efforts as a group, and hopefully save community efforts, and certainly the county resources, which are obviously limited. So, all right, that's it. Thanks.
Any questions? You're not addressing the traffic flow though in this, just safety.
I think it's all part of the safety aspect.
Right.
Is how much traffic, and that those are things that they have been asking to have tracked.
Yeah, traffic's a big part of it, especially with the Walker Road construction, which I know is kind of coming to a close, but we have Walker Murray intersection, that phase of the Walker Road reconstruction is actually still coming up. So that whole intersection is going to be a mess for, for years coming up. So the whole Pioneer Road Northwest 150th, that's still going to be a popular cut through for a lot of commuters for quite a while.
Well, we thank you for your efforts and appreciate the update.
So Virginia.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick updates for CPO 1. We didn't publish an October issue of Cedar Mill News, and so I caught up with a lot of CPO stuff in the November issue of Cedar Mill News, and you can look at that by going to cedarmillnews.com and then looking at the CPO news. There is one neighborhood meeting coming up that is dealing with 4-lot subdivision north of West Road, just a little one, and that's Monday, November 18th in the Cedar Hills Recreation Center, 6:30 to 7:30. That is listed in the November issue of the paper. The other thing, other big CPO1 update is that we'll be having elections at the December meeting. Bruce and I are running again for leadership of CPO1, me as chair, he is vice chair. We haven't had any nominations from the group, but if somebody wants to take it over from us, make your wishes known. I think that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so I'm running for vice chair. And if you want an awesome power position, you can relatively.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's the power. So, thank you, Virginia.
I'm not sure if people know also this meeting is being recorded on YouTube. CPO1 has a YouTube channel, so this meeting's going to be available on our CPO. And you can find it on Google if you just go November 2024 CPO1 meeting, and it'll find it on Google.
And we upload CPO7 meetings also onto YouTube.
Kind
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make an announcement about their January event.
Yes, I was gonna say, so December, we're meeting here, and that's when we'll have our presentation with, on the CPO modernization project. And then in January, go ahead, that would be fun.
We are planning a social.
Yay.
So CPO wants to participate. We haven't determined a date yet. But the idea is that we've been coming together every month to talk about challenging issues and things impacting our community. And haven't really done a whole lot of socializing, but have besides asking questions to the service providers in the county. And so we want to bring everybody together with some yummy food and some drinks. I think Bethany Church is TBD, maybe we'll figure it out. But anyways, I also want this to be an opportunity for us to engage neighbors who maybe we haven't spoken to or who know of the CPO program. So I'm going to be making little flyers, which I can share with you all digitally and printed ones. But like personally, I am going to go knocking around CPO 7 the neighborhood to like invite new people who haven't heard about the program. I think it's a great way to connect with neighbors and recruit more folks into.
And where do you live?
I live on 150th and Pioneer. Do you know where that's at? Like right in the neighborhood and what north?
We're south
It's
of
the-
Highway 26.
And it's the east edge of the
north.
Right.
Well, the Park and Rec Interpreting Center. It's the
Oh,
east
okay,
edge of
got
that.
it. So we don't necessarily run into you in the market, but it's a great place for all of us CPO 7 folks to reunite at times. So we just thought this would be a good opportunity. More details to come, specific. We love this location, but they don't let us keep here. So, okay, the last thing I wanted to say is we had a presentation earlier in the year from Ride Connect about the Bethany Link. So they are now fully established, and if you go onto the Ride Connection, I'm going to put my glasses on for this so I read it correctly. It's the rideconnection.org website. You can get a list of the different stops, how to access the rides, and the additional information about it. So, okay, with that said, I think we have we put in a good night's work. Any other questions? Anything else?
There's going to be a presentation on the Fulton Valley water and the pipeline from Sherwood.
When is there going to be?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Thought it was going to be.
So, but the pipeline from Sherwood, interesting.
Oh, Willamette River.
Well, the big pipes,
Yeah.
all up and down. everywhere.
4 foot, $1 billion project.
It is, yeah.
35 miles. And I just wondered what the progress is going to be.
For the most part, it hasn't really impacted our plans. Projects have been in other CPOs. We felt the cost in our water bills. Yeah.
Yes.
But because, you know, it really isn't tying up our roads and our traffic. It's something we haven't thought it was as important to address as
To
some
tackle
other.
it this.
Yeah, but if it's something that people are interested in, it's certainly something that we should be looking at.
And if there's enough of us that have some questions about it, we can certainly invite somebody. So we will make note of that and put that on. It's always good to have agenda
The
topics.
construction's been on Roy Rogers and Shoals Ferry. It's been several years.
Yeah, this has been a long time in the planning, and it's making huge changes in the landscape. So long-term, hopefully it will benefit us all. So,
Hopefully $1 billion should.
yeah.
Can you plan use and planning comes to talk to it?
They have been, yes, we've had individuals from land use and transportation for specifically really answering questions about developments.
Okay, yeah,
process.
but there's no Nothing on the agenda.
Nothing at this point,
But we
right?
do take agenda topics, so.
We love agenda
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to have something on the agenda about the development on 174th.
Specifically.
Specifically, the egress is bad, the line of sight is bad, and the traffic flow is bad. From that, and there is no published final plan for that development. And
What's
there's
it
big
for
roads.
what?
Can you send
I did
specific
send-
information to the CPO7leaders@gmail.com?
I think I already did.
Did you really?
I
Okay.
did.
I'm
Tonight, I didn't, I'm not.
Okay, because that would be one way that we could look into it and then contact the land use transportation
Okay,
folks to
yeah.
see when they could come.
Watershed is another thing, so that was an interesting.
Definitely. How many folks here are interested in emergency preparedness topics? I love talking about that, you're listening about that. So that's one of the things that we're looking at doing in the next year too. So, all right, and with that said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
There's no second is on a motion.
Robert's. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.